The cadets were still laughing when the alarms began to wail. A roar of klaxons ripped through the Galactic Enforcer Academy training grounds, drowning out their mockery in a single, gut-punching moment. 30 seconds ago, they had been howling at the silent human, the one who had gone 3 whole weeks without uttering a word, their jeers filling the air like static. Now, as red light strobed across the ceiling, the laughter died in their throats. It was just a drill, someone muttered. But even the cockiest alien cadet could see the instructors moving with the kind of urgency drills never had. Something was very, very wrong. Kai Vance did not flinch. He had been standing at the edge of the training floor, helmet tucked under one arm, expression unreadable, gaze fixed on the hangar doors beyond which chaos was now blooming. He was the only human in the galaxy's most elite law enforcement unit, and he was universally considered the strangest. Not because of his species, although most enforcers privately regarded Earth as little more than a rural mudball, but because of his silence. For weeks, he had endured mockery, pranks, and challenges with the stillness of a stone. It drove his fellow recruits mad. Zorak, the insectoid bruiser with a voice like grinding steel, had once shouted at him for 20 minutes straight, daring him to speak. Jinx, the shapeshifter with the humor of a 10-year-old and the patience of a squirrel, had turned into a perfect replica of him just to mimic his supposed lack of personality. Through it all, Kai had said nothing. Now the hangar doors shuddered as an explosion echoed beyond them, rattling the floor beneath the cadets' boots. Plasma fire streaked across the narrow windows above. A security droid spun into view, half its frame melted, before collapsing in a shower of sparks. That, unmistakably, was not part of any simulation. The commandant stormed into the training hall, her enormous cape snapping behind her like the wing of some cosmic bird. "Everyone to stations," she barked. "Drones in the ventilation system. Real ones? Someone's hijacked the defense grid. Move it." Her gaze cut across the room, landing briefly on the human who hadn't yet moved. The pause was almost imperceptible. Then she snapped at the nearest squad leader to form strike teams. It was chaos. Cadets scrambled for weapons, helmets, and orders, their earlier bravado collapsing into panic. Zorak swore in his native tongue, an explosion of clicks and hisses. Jinx, still jittery with adrenaline, morphed into a version of the commandant by mistake, earning a half-dozen confused salutes before swearing and snapping back to his usual form. Even Luma, the serene telepath whose species prided itself on calm rationality, had a faint crease on her usually tranquil forehead. Kai finally moved. He set his helmet on with slow, deliberate precision, while alarms painted the room crimson. No one was looking at him now. No one cared if he spoke or didn't speak. The real fight was coming through the walls, and the last thing on anyone's mind was the mute human they had spent weeks ridiculing. But then the first wave of rogue drones tore through the ceiling panels like they were paper. Half a dozen metal killers dropped into the training hall, spinning up plasma repeaters before anyone could form a defensive line. A cadet screamed. Another froze. The nearest instructor went down in a spray of sparks as his personal shield failed. Panic gripped the room like a living thing. And over the rising roar, for the first time in 3 weeks, Kai's voice came through the squad comms. Calm. Cold. Controlled. On me. Every helmet turned at once. The silent human's voice was nothing like they had imagined. It was steady as bedrock, cutting through terror like a blade through silk. On me, he repeated, already moving. His armor bore no rank insignia, his nameplate was half scuffed off, but the way he slipped through the panicked crowd toward the drones had the natural precision of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. He didn't bark orders. He didn't scream for covering fire. He simply moved, and those nearest him followed before realizing what they were doing. Zorak, blinking in shock, found himself advancing shoulder to shoulder with the human he had mocked that very morning. Jinx cursed under his breath, shifted into a heavy-armored form, and bounded after them. Even Luma abandoned her attempts to telepathically calm the crowd and fell in behind. Kai reached the first drone before it could finish targeting the cadets huddled behind a barrier. His plasma pistol cleared its holster in one smooth motion, a single shot lancing upward through its optic cluster. The machine collapsed in a sparking heap. He was already moving again, using the smoking chassis as cover from the next burst of plasma fire. 2 more shots, 2 more drones down. He didn't miss. The cadets, emboldened by his impossible calm, began returning fire in ragged bursts. Zorak roared and charged, his heavy rifle spitting blue energy bolts. Jinx, now shaped like a 6-armed monster from Rigel 4, ripped a drone apart with absurd glee. But it was Kai who turned chaos into something resembling a counterattack, his quiet commands snapping through the comms like whip cracks. Left flank. Rotate cover. Watch the ceiling. In less than 3 minutes, the last drone fell smoking to the floor. The training hall reeked of scorched metal and ozone. Several cadets were bleeding, one instructor lay unconscious, and the ceiling was a ruin. But everyone still standing was staring at the human in stunned silence. He removed his helmet. For a moment, the only sound was the crackle of burning circuitry. Then Zorak, mandibles clicking uncertainly, finally managed to speak. "Callsign," he said gruffly. "Everyone here's got one." "What's yours, human?" Kai looked at him for a long moment, eyes unreadable. Then he glanced around the ruined hall, at the cadets still staring, at the commandant watching him like someone seeing a ghost. "Ghost," he said simply. And for the first time since the alarms began, no one laughed. The days after the attack were anything but quiet. Word spread through the Galactic Enforcer Academy faster than plasma fire that the silent human had not only spoken but had also led the defense that saved half the recruits from being reduced to smoldering ash. And the call sign he chose, Ghost, had already taken on a life of its own. By the end of the week, there were rumors he had single-handedly taken down 20 drones instead of 5, that he had been a secret assassin trained in the mountains of Earth, that he had stared down the commandant herself and made her flinch. None of it was true, not entirely, but none of it was denied either. Ghost certainly was not offering explanations. He spoke only when necessary, and even then, only in the clipped tones of someone who had better things to do than engage in small talk. The cadets were split on how to handle this development. Some regarded him with a new respect. Others, like Zorak, simmered with resentment that the human had gone from laughingstock to legend in less than a day. Zorak, prideful to the core, could not tolerate the idea of anyone, especially a soft-skinned creature from some mudball planet, eclipsing him in skill or reputation. He made this displeasure known in the usual Zorak fashion, which was by challenging Ghost to duels at every possible opportunity. The first duel had ended embarrassingly when Ghost dismantled Zorak's plasma staff in under 10 seconds without a word. The second ended when Ghost sidestepped a charging Zorak and let him crash into a training drone that was not even part of the fight. The third duel was still talked about because Zorak had managed to bring a jetpack into the equation, only to be snared midair by a cable Ghost had rigged in advance. Each loss only made Zorak angrier, and the cadets only laughed harder. Jinx, on the other hand, found the whole situation endlessly entertaining. The shapeshifter had made it his personal mission to crack the human's composure. He shifted into perfect imitations of Ghost, complete with ridiculous dramatizations of his so-called legendary voice. He once spent an entire lunch period as Ghost ordering extra dessert in the mess hall just to see if the real one would react. Ghost never did. Jinx found this both infuriating and inspiring. He was certain, absolutely certain, that somewhere beneath that unshakable exterior was a sense of humor waiting to be unleashed. Probably. Maybe. Training intensified after the attack. The commandant claimed it was to prepare for further incursions, though many cadets suspected it was also a way to channel their growing restlessness. Simulations ran day and night. Starship maneuvers, boarding drills, zero-gravity combat scenarios. If it could be fought, flown, or fumbled, they trained it. Through it all, Ghost remained infuriatingly competent. He did not dominate every exercise, not outwardly, but he always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, his decisions precise, his movements economical. Others charged into battle with the enthusiasm of brawlers. Ghost fought like a chess player moving pieces 3 turns ahead. Then came the day everything changed again. It began like any other simulation, with the usual groans from cadets who had been hoping for a break, and the usual smirk from Zorik promising this would be the day he finally crushed the human. The briefing described a mock defense of the academy against a swarm of drones, similar to the real attack but supposedly under full instructor control this time. Everyone was assigned roles. Jinx was on reconnaissance, Zorik on heavy assault, Luma on coordination, Ghost slotted quietly into a strike team as though he were just another recruit. The simulation began smoothly. Too smoothly, as it turned out. 10 minutes in, as cadets blasted apart drone after drone, the lights flickered. For a moment, everyone thought it was part of the exercise. Then the floor shuddered. A second later, real alarms joined the fake ones, and every instructor's calm crackled with panicked voices. Unauthorized drones. Multiple breaches. Defense grid offline. This was no simulation. The first wave hit the outer perimeter before anyone fully understood what was happening. These drones were faster, smarter, deadlier than the ones from before. Within moments, half the Academy's automated defenses were in ruins, and the command center was screaming for cadets to evacuate training zones and regroup at defensive choke points. It was chaos. Simulated chaos had rules. This didn't. Through the comms, voices overlapped in panicked shouts. Orders contradicted each other. Zorik bellowed something about holding the line. Jinx swore he was staying in recon because no one else could shape-shift into a drone and confuse the enemy like him. Luma tried to project calming thoughts to everyone at once and nearly collapsed from the mental strain. The Commandant herself was coordinating orbital defenses and had no time to micromanage the ground teams. And then, cutting through the storm of voices, came that same calm tone as before. On me. Every head snapped up. Every comm fell silent. There was only one person in the entire academy who could make 2 words feel like solid ground beneath their boots. Ghost did not repeat himself. He was already moving, rallying cadets into a formation like he had been waiting for this moment all along. He assigned firing lanes, repositioned squads, and ordered evacuations with the ease of someone born to command. Zorik, who had spent weeks mocking him, found himself obeying before realizing it, dragging a wounded cadet to cover because Ghost had told him to. Jinx, halfway through a joke about how the human thought he was in charge now, caught sight of Ghost disabling 3 drones with surgical precision and decided maybe now was not the time for comedy. Even Luma, who could sense the emotions of everyone around her, felt a strange steadiness radiating from the human like a shield against the panic threatening to swallow them all. Within 20 minutes, the cadets had done what the automated defenses could not, held the line. Ghost led the counterattack himself, using routes and tactics no one had taught at the academy. Drones went down in calculated waves, every move orchestrated like pieces falling into place on an invisible board. By the time the last machine was scrapped, the once mocked human stood at the center of a ragged but victorious group of recruits who were now looking at him with something close to awe. That was when the Commandant herself arrived, cape scorched from a near miss in the upper levels, eyes scanning the battered cadets before landing on Ghost. You, she said, voice low but carrying. Where did you learn to do that? Ghost met her gaze steadily. Earth, he said simply. It was the first time anyone had heard pride in his voice. And it would not be the last. Rumors spread through the academy like wildfire after the second attack. Earth. That was all he had said. Just that one word, but it carried weight none of them could measure. The galaxy at large barely thought of Earth at all. It was a world on the fringes, unremarkable, not part of the great interstellar alliances or the wars that shaped them. It had no famous fleets, no legendary heroes, no history of conquest or tragedy sung across the stars. It was a backwater planet of backwater people. And yet here was a man from Earth who fought like no one had ever seen, who commanded without rank, who turned chaos into victory with nothing more than precision and nerve. It made no sense, and the fact that it made no sense drove everyone at the academy half mad. The cadets wanted answers. The instructors wanted answers. Even the Commandant, who had seen more battles than most of the recruits would ever dream of, wanted answers. But Ghost offered none. He was as he had always been, silent until he had reason to speak, disciplined to the point of severity, always on the edges of things as though watching for threats only he could see. If anyone thought they could corner him with questions, they quickly discovered he was a master of vanishing when conversations became inconvenient. More than once, Zorik stormed into the mess hall demanding a duel, or at least an explanation, only to find the human had slipped out 2 minutes earlier like smoke through fingers. Luma was the first to try a different approach. As a telepath, she was used to barriers. Minds resisted her, sometimes out of fear, sometimes out of training, sometimes out of sheer stubbornness. But Ghost's mind was different. It was quiet. Too quiet. Most people thought in noise, even disciplined soldiers, their thoughts like rivers rushing behind a dam. Ghost felt like standing on the edge of a still lake at night, no ripples, no movement, no hint of what lay beneath. The first time she brushed against his consciousness, she had felt nothing at all, as though she had reached for someone in the dark and found only air. It unsettled her. The second time she tried, she felt something faint stir under the surface, a presence aware of her but not hostile, simply closed. Like a door locked from the inside. "You cannot read him either," Jinx said one evening when she admitted this over dinner. He grinned in that infuriating way shapeshifters had when they thought they knew more than everyone else. "I told you, he is secretly some kind of assassin prince. Probably exiled. Probably brooding about it right now on a rooftop somewhere." "He is not brooding," Luma said calmly. "He is definitely brooding," Jinx insisted. "And training. And polishing his weapons in the moonlight, while composing tragic monologues he will never say out loud." Luma gave him a flat look, but secretly she wondered too. Not about the monologues, Ghost hardly seemed the type, but about the life he had lived before coming here. Soldiers like him did not simply appear out of nowhere. Skill like his was earned, and usually at a cost. Meanwhile, Zorik was losing his mind. He had devoted himself entirely to proving he was still the best fighter in the academy, ghost or no ghost. He trained until his claws cracked and his mandibles ached from snarling. He added armor plates to his already massive frame. He demanded harder simulations, more dangerous duels, anything that might finally give him the victory over the human that had eluded him since day one. The next duel was a spectacle. Half the academy crowded into the arena to watch Zorik, now carrying a plasma halberd the size of a small shuttle wing, face off against the unarmed human who had not even bothered to bring a shield this time. Bets were placed. Jinx, of course, provided running commentary in the voice of the commandant until she threatened to eject him personally. The fight lasted 40 seconds. Zorik charged like a meteor. Ghost sidestepped once, twice, then closed the distance, and used the big warrior's own momentum to flip him flat on his back with a move so fast most of the audience did not even see it happen. By the time Zorik realized he was staring at the ceiling, Ghost had already walked off the platform. The cadets roared with laughter. Jinx nearly fell out of his seat. Even Luma allowed herself the faintest smile. The commandant, watching from the observation deck, did not smile. She had seen the same thing everyone else had, but she was not laughing. Instead, she summoned her adjutant and ordered a full background pull on the human recruit from Earth. When the adjutant hesitated, because Earth records were notoriously incomplete and difficult to access, she repeated the order with a tone that brooked no argument. 2 days later the report came back with half the files redacted and the other half stamped with classification levels the Academy technically did not have clearance to view. The commandant read what little she was allowed to see and did not share it with anyone. She did, however, send a brief, encrypted message off-world. No one but she knew what it said. While the commandant moved pieces behind the scenes, the cadets speculated endlessly. Theories ranged from Ghost being the sole survivor of some secret Earth war to him being an experimental combat clone to him being, as Jinx insisted, the aforementioned assassin prince. Every time Ghost walked into a room, conversation stopped because everyone wanted to see if he would finally reveal something. He never did. It was during this restless lull that Luma finally cornered him on the observation deck overlooking the training fields. The evening sky above the Academy's shield dome blazed with the orange of a distant nebula. "You are not what you seem," she said without preamble. Ghost did not look at her. He leaned on the railing, watching cadets run drills below. Few people are, he said. But you are less what you seem than most, she pressed. I have touched minds across 3 galaxies. Yours is like stone. Even the strongest soldiers carry echoes of fear or anger or pride. You carry nothing. Ghost was silent a long time before answering. That is because echoes get soldiers killed, he said finally. It was not the answer she expected. Before she could ask more, alarms blared across the academy for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. Not a drill. Incoming ship's breaching system defenses. The voice over the comms sounded tight, afraid. It identified the attackers as ex-enforcers turned mercenaries. And at their head, one name, Commander Vrax. The commandant swore sharply and began ordering the defense grid online. But the message that came next froze everyone in place. The mercenaries were demanding one thing in exchange for leaving the system alive. They wanted the human called Ghost. The Academy had been under threat before, but this was different. The mercenary fleet appeared out of the void like a thunderhead, ships bristling with weapons, formation precise and disciplined in a way that spoke of long experience. These were no raiders or pirates chasing plunder. These were soldiers, trained and lethal, and they had come with one goal. Their demands repeated over the open channel as the commandant stood rigid on the command deck, listening to Commander Vrax's gravel-edged voice announce that the Academy would hand over the human called Ghost or face complete destruction. Cadets crowded around the holoscreens showing the enemy fleet. Jinx muttered a string of words in 3 different languages, none of them polite. Zorik slammed a clawed fist into the wall hard enough to leave a dent. Luma stood very still, eyes closed as though listening for something beyond the room. And Ghost, the center of this sudden storm, simply watched the display without comment. He looked neither surprised nor afraid, though every pair of eyes kept darting toward him, waiting for a reaction. The commandant's voice cut through the tension like a blade. They will receive no such thing, she said flatly. Her orders snapped across the room as the defense grid came alive, cannons powering up along the perimeter walls, squadrons scrambling fighters from launch bays. She directed the instructors to rally cadets for ground defense positions. No one was leaving the academy undefended, and no one was being surrendered to mercenaries. But the enemy fleet moved fast. Before the outer defenses were fully active, the first wave of dropships punched through the atmosphere, their escorts cutting down the few fighters ready to intercept them. The mercenaries deployed with brutal efficiency, landing strike teams across the academy grounds in coordinated assaults. Within minutes, firefights erupted near the hangars, the command center, even the training fields. Ghost moved before anyone could tell him to. He armed himself from the nearest rack, checking weapons with a practiced economy of motion, then turned to the other cadets gathering near the barracks. On me, he said, the same calm voice he had used during the drone attacks. The effect was immediate. Jinx shifted into a towering creature with 6 arms and enough armor plating to stop a tank shell, grinning like he had been waiting his whole life for this. Zorik hefted his plasma halberd, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Whatever resentment he felt toward Ghost drowned beneath the chance for battle. Luma drew a deep breath, steadying herself before reaching for the minds of their enemies, probing for intent, for weakness, for anything to give them an edge. Under Ghost's direction, the squad moved toward the nearest landing site where mercenaries were pouring from a dropship like a stream of black water. The first clash came hard and fast. Plasma fire lit the air as cadets dove for cover, returning shots in ragged bursts until Ghost's voice cut through the chaos, ordering them into crossfire positions that trapped the mercenaries in a deadly pincer. Zorik charged straight through the center like a living battering ram, scattering soldiers with sweeps of his halberd. Jinx grabbed one mercenary by the leg with a clawed limb the size of a tree trunk and flung him into 3 others. Luma dropped 2 more when her telepathic push sent them reeling in disorientation. Ghost himself moved through the fight like a phantom, never where the enemy expected, every shot precise, every decision measured. He was the one who spotted the heavy weapons team setting up along the ridge and sent Jinx crashing through them before they could cut down half the squad. He was the one who noticed the mercenaries trying to flank from the left and redirected Zorik in time to block them. Even as explosions tore across the fields and smoke boiled upward toward the shield dome, he seemed to see the whole battle at once, shaping it in ways no one else could. But the mercenaries kept coming. Another dropship screamed through the atmosphere, landing closer to the command center. Through the Academy comms came reports of fighting near the orbital control uplink, the enemy pushing toward critical systems that could bring the defense grid crashing down. The commandant's voice ordered all available squads to converge on the uplink. Ghost didn't hesitate. He led his team at a run across burning courtyards and shattered walls toward the heart of the battle. Distant cannon fire shook the ground as defense turrets traded blows with the fleet overhead. Cadets and mercenaries clashed in brutal skirmishes across the campus, flashes of plasma lighting the smoke-choked air. As they neared the uplink, Luma staggered mid-stride, her hand flying to her temple. She felt something, a mind like a blade slicing through the chaos, sharp with intent. "He is here," she said, voice tight. "Commander Vrax." The name carried weight even among the cadets. Vrax had once been an enforcer captain before turning mercenary, a soldier whose defection years ago had sent shockwaves through the ranks. No one knew why he had abandoned his post, only that he had built a reputation since as a ruthless commander for hire. They found him atop the uplink platform, his armor scarred but imposing, his presence commanding the battlefield around him. Mercenaries formed a tight perimeter as he watched Ghost approach through the smoke. Even across the distance, his voice carried like rolling thunder. "Project Revenant," he called, the words halting every cadet in their tracks. "That is what they called you, isn't it? Humanity's perfect soldier." The cadets glanced at Ghost, stunned, but he gave no reaction. Vrax's laughter boomed across the platform. "They built you to fight monsters like me. Then buried their little secret when they realized perfect soldiers don't stay loyal forever." The words hit harder than the cannon fire shaking the horizon. Project Revenant. Perfect soldier. The cadets exchanged looks, realizing this battle was about more than an academy, or even a war. Vrax had not come for revenge or conquest. He had come for Ghost because of what he was. And then Vrax pointed his weapon toward the human who had been their mystery for so long and said loud enough for the whole battlefield to hear that the galaxy was not ready for what was coming. That only Ghost knew the truth about the enemy beyond the stars, the one Vrax now served. The next wave of mercenaries hit the platform like a storm, and the fight to reach Vrax began. The platform burned beneath their boots as the mercenaries swarmed in from every angle. Plasma fire scorched the air, leaving streaks of blue and white across the smoke-choked sky. Cadets scrambled for cover behind shattered barricades while Ghost pushed forward through the chaos with the same unshakable precision he had shown since the first attack. Every move he made carried purpose. Every shot struck exactly where it needed to. He was fighting like a man who had done this before on too many battlefields to count. And for the first time, the cadets realized the rumors about him might not have been rumors at all. Commander Vrax held the high ground, watching like a predator as Ghost cut through his soldiers. He barely moved, his massive armor gleaming under the burning uplink lights, his weapons slung casually across one shoulder, as though he had no need to join the fray. He had said what he came to say. Now he seemed content to let his forces bleed the academy dry while waiting for Ghost to reach him. And Ghost would reach him. That much was inevitable. Zorak fought like a creature possessed, his halberd a blur of blazing energy, as he carved through mercenaries. He bellowed curses with every swing, mandibles clicking in fury at men who fought with the discipline of soldiers instead of the chaos of raiders. Beside him, Jinx shifted through forms as quickly as he landed blows, one moment a towering beast smashing opponents aside, the next a sleek, long-limbed predator slipping through enemy lines to scatter them in confusion. Luma stayed behind cover, eyes closed, her telepathy sending bursts of panic into enemy minds whenever they tried to flank the cadets, buying precious seconds that kept the squad alive. But even as they pushed forward, Vrax's words hung over them like a shadow. Project Revenant. Perfect soldier. Built by Earth to fight something no one else knew about. Every cadet heard the same implication: Ghost was not one of them. Not really. He was something else. Something made for war in a way that made even Zorak's fury, or Jinx's chaos look amateurish. The battle turned when Ghost vaulted the last barricade with 3 cadets at his back and stormed the uplink steps under covering fire from Zorik's squad. Vrax finally hefted his massive rifle, firing a single shot that tore a chunk of plating from the wall inches from Ghost's head. The 2 men faced each other across the burning platform as the fight raged around them, mercenaries clashing with cadets in a storm of energy bolts and shouted orders. "You were supposed to be the future," Vrax called over the noise, his voice carrying easily across the chaos. "The human weapon to end all wars. Earth's answer to the darkness coming for us all. Instead, you ran from it." Ghost said nothing. He advanced slowly, weapon ready, expression unreadable. "They will never understand what is coming," Vrax continued, almost like he was lecturing the watching cadets. "This galaxy is not ready. Earth tried to prepare, but their soldiers learned the truth and turned their backs. Just like you." The words were heavy with meaning none of the cadets could grasp, but Luma felt a spike of something in Ghost's mind at that moment. Not fear. Not anger. Just memory. Flashes of things buried deep beneath his calm exterior. Battles fought in places no one here had ever seen. Shadows moving against stars no one here had ever named. And one name whispered like a curse beneath it all. Carthos. Then Vrax attacked. The platform shook under the impact as his power-augmented strikes met Ghost's defense in a storm of plasma and steel. The fight moved like lightning, 2 soldiers too fast for anyone to follow clearly. Ghost fought with precision, using speed over brute force, while Vrax fought like a hammer made flesh, each blow cracking the deck beneath their feet. Around them, cadets and mercenaries alike pulled back, the battle pausing as though everyone sensed this duel carried weight beyond the skirmish itself. Zorik cursed under his breath as he dragged a wounded cadet to safety. He hated every second of standing back while someone else carried the fight, but even he knew charging into that clash would be suicide. Jinx, for once, said nothing at all. Luma gripped her rifle with white knuckles, feeling the tension radiating from Ghost's mind like heat. The duel ended when Ghost fainted left, drew Vrax into overcommitting, and drove the mercenary commander to one knee with a shot that blew the weapon from his hands. In an instant, cadets swarmed forward, weapons raised, but Vrax only laughed through the blood running down his chin. "It will not matter," he said, voice raw but triumphant. "Carthos is coming. Your little academy will burn like the rest when he arrives." The name fell like a blade through the air. None of the cadets recognized it, but Ghost did. His face shifted almost imperceptibly at the word, the faintest tightening around his eyes. Before they could capture Vrax, a dropship roared overhead, mercenaries laying down heavy fire that forced everyone back. In the chaos, Vrax triggered a detonator at his belt. Explosives rigged across the uplink towers erupted in a chain of fire, toppling steel and concrete between the cadets and their target. When the smoke cleared, the mercenary commander was gone, evacuated by his own men while half the uplink lay in ruins. The academy counted the cost as fires burned across the campus. Casualties mounted. Entire wings of the main complex were destroyed. And Vrax had escaped after delivering his message. Later, in the command center, arguments erupted loud enough to shake the walls. Zorik demanded Ghost explain everything. Jinx, pacing with restless energy, demanded to know who Carthos was and why mercenaries were willing to die just to take one human prisoner. Instructors shouted about defense failures while the commandant silenced them all with a single gesture and turned to Ghost. "What is Carthos?" she asked quietly, "and why does he want you?" For a long moment, Ghost said nothing. Then he told them about the ancient war Earth had discovered at the edge of known space, a conflict fought long before the Academy even existed. Carthos, warlord of a vanished empire, whose fleets had once burned entire worlds before disappearing into the dark. Earth had built soldiers like Ghosts to fight him when signs of his return appeared decades ago. Soldiers who were stronger, faster, trained beyond human limits. Soldiers who won the first battles but learned too late that Carthos was never truly gone. And now, Ghost finished, he has allies. Vrax serves him. Others will too. The commandant studied him in silence before issuing orders to fortify every system defense the Academy controlled. But before plans could even be finalized, alarms blared again, this time from the dormitory wing. Luma was gone. Taken in the chaos by mercenary infiltrators while everyone else had been focused on the uplink. The Academy fell silent as Ghost checked his weapon and turned toward the hangar. He was not waiting for orders. He was going to bring her back. The hangar was a storm of activity as Ghost strode in, armor scorched from the last battle but eyes fixed and steady. Dropships powered up along the launch rails while cadets scrambled to rearm, voices overlapping in chaos as orders flew across the comms. The commandant was already on the upper platform barking directives to secure the Academy's perimeter, but when she saw Ghost heading for one of the strike ships she knew she could not stop him. He was going after Luma whether anyone else followed or not. Zorik clattered up behind him, hauling his plasma halberd over one shoulder with a snarl that promised violence. Jinx bounded into the hatch after them, shifting into a creature with long claws and even longer teeth as though expecting a fight before they were halfway there. A handful of cadets volunteered on the spot, their faces pale but determined. The dropship launched into the smoke-streaked sky, banking hard toward the last known coordinates of Vrax's forces. Luma's signal beacon pulsed faintly on the tactical display, carried aboard the massive dreadnought now drifting like a predator above the planet's orbit. The mercenary fleet had pulled back there after the attack, gathering around the flagship in a defensive ring. Whatever they planned for Luma, they were not wasting time. Inside the dropship, the squad checked weapons in silence until Jinx finally broke it. "Anyone else wondering why they keep running instead of finishing us off?" he said, his voice carrying the edge of nerves he tried to hide behind humor. "They have the ships. The firepower. Something is going on." Ghost gave no answer. His attention stayed locked on the tactical display as the dreadnought grew larger through the viewport. The others had seen him fight, had seen him lead, but now there was something colder about him, something like a door closing as he prepared for what came next. They hit the dreadnought's hangar bay hard, engines screaming as the dropship slammed onto the deck under covering fire from its own cannons. Cadets poured out behind Ghost as plasma bolts crisscrossed the landing zone. Mercenaries rushed to cut them off, but Zorik met the first wave head-on, his halberd carving through armor and steel with reckless fury. Jinx hurled himself into a second squad, shifting mid-leap into a four-armed beast that tore weapons from enemy hands before they could fire. Ghost advanced through the chaos without hesitation, shots dropping mercenaries with clinical precision as he pushed toward the inner corridors where Luma's signal beacon still pulsed. The dreadnought's interior was a maze of blast doors and steel corridors lit by the red flash of emergency lights. Fighting raged deck by deck as the squad forced its way inside. The cadets had trained for close-quarters combat, but never like this, never against soldiers this disciplined or this determined to hold them back. Ghost led from the front, never slowing, every movement efficient, every order clear. He split the squad into fire teams to flank choke points, used Jinx to sow confusion among enemy ranks, unleashed Zorik like a living battering ram through bulkhead doors. Step by step they fought deeper toward the signal beacon until they reached the command deck towering at the dreadnought's heart. They found Luma there. Bound but unharmed, guarded by mercenaries who fell quickly when Ghost's team stormed the deck. But freeing her was only the beginning because Commander Vrax waited beyond the viewports, stepping through the smoke as blast shutters opened to the ship's upper platform. Around them the battle still raged, Academy reinforcements hammering the mercenary fleet outside while fighters screamed past the viewport glass in streaks of fire. Vrax carried no rifle this time, only a massive war axe crackling with energy as he advanced to meet Ghost. "You cannot stop what is coming," he said, voice carrying above the alarms and gunfire. "Carthos will burn this galaxy clean. You think one soldier can change that?" Ghost moved to meet him, saying nothing. Their fight exploded across the upper platform in a storm of steel and plasma, faster than the cadets could track. Vrax struck like a meteor, each blow of his axe enough to crack the deck plates, while Ghost answered with speed and precision, turning momentum against him, landing strikes that chipped away at armor built to withstand artillery fire. Below them, Zorik held the stairwell against wave after wave of mercenaries trying to retake the deck, his roars shaking the walls as he split enemies apart with each swing of his halberd. Jinx shifted forms mid-battle to counter whatever weapons the mercenaries brought forward, one moment a beast tearing through shields, the next a sleek shape dodging heavy fire to smash gun emplacements apart. Luma, freed from her restraints, sent telepathic bursts into enemy minds to scatter coordination before it could form. The duel at the platform's center built toward a brutal crescendo. Vrax fought with the strength of a war machine, but Ghost moved like a blade of living silence, exploiting every opening with merciless precision. When Vrax overextended on a downward strike, Ghost stepped inside his guard and drove him backward with a series of blows that cracked armor and sent the mercenary commander crashing against the platform railing. "You think killing me will stop him?" Vrax snarled, struggling back to his feet. "Karthos is already awake. His fleets are coming. You were made to fight him, Revenant, but even you were too afraid to finish the job." Ghost's expression never changed as he closed in. "Maybe," he said, the first word he had spoken since landing on the dreadnought. "But you will not be here to see it." The final strike hit like thunder, tearing through Vrax's armor in a flash of light that hurled him across the deck. He hit the railing hard enough to bend steel before toppling over the edge into the burning hangar far below. With their commander down, the mercenary forces began to falter. Academy reinforcements smashed through the dreadnought's outer decks while cadets cleared the remaining resistance from the command center. Ghost triggered the ship's evacuation alarms before ordering everyone back to the dropships. They were leaving nothing behind but fire and wreckage. Minutes later, the dreadnought erupted in a chain of explosions visible even from the Academy surface as Ghost's team cleared the blast zone. Back on the ground, the Commandant met them in the hangar, gaze sweeping across the returning squad before settling on Ghost. Reports already confirmed Vrax's death, the mercenary fleet scattering without its leader, the Academy safe for now. But everyone had heard what Vrax said about Karthos. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. Ghost removed his helmet, meeting the Commandant's eyes without flinching. Then he spoke quietly so only those closest could hear. "We have time to prepare now." That was the point. Zorik snorted like he preferred a victory without ominous warnings attached. Jinx shifted into a perfect imitation of Ghost's calm voice, ordering everyone on me just to see if anyone would laugh. Luma, pale but steady after her capture, stood beside Ghost as the Academy's alarms finally went silent. For the first time since the attacks began, the Academy felt safe again. But every cadet who had heard the name Karthos knew the real war had not even started.